Hi Newton, tonight you're watching Veracity. I'm your host Tom Sheff. Tonight we continue our series of debates between candidates for public office. And tonight we have a debate between three candidates, not two. This is the first time we've ever had three candidates for Ward 7 Alderman-at-Large. The entire city can vote for two of these three people, and they are Sydra Schnipper, Ruthanne Fuller, and Jeff Seideman. Here's the first question, and the question goes to Sydra. What is the role of the Board of Aldermen, and do you think it's been effective as a co-equal branch of government during Mayor Cohen's years in office?
Well, the Board of Aldermen is the legislative branch of the city, and by our city charter, they are not co-equal. We have a strong mayoral form of government, which means that only the mayor can put forth a proposal for financial spending. The board can vote it up or down. It can cut, but it cannot increase. It can only do that by resolution. So the board is effective in terms of the legislation that it passes and the oversight of the different departments and budgets, etc. But it is not a co-equal form of government. There are many who would like to see the charter change to give the board more power, but it is not in the charter to do that. So that would require a charter commission, which I believe you have been involved in looking at.
Thanks for the flag.
Yes, absolutely.
Ruthanne?
Two parts to that question. What is the role of the board, and is it effective? Really a third part, and is it co-equal? What is the role? It has two primary roles. First, as with the budget, the Board of Aldermen, if the mayor proposes a budget item, the role of the board is to dispose. It cannot increase the amount. It can only vote yes or no or decrease the amount. The other primary role of the board is in zoning and in our special permitting process. And it's not clear to me that that is actually an appropriate role. You did ask whether it is a co-equal branch. By our city charter, at the moment, it isn't. The mayor has the central role here, and the board is subordinate, and I would welcome a look at the role of the mayor's office and the Board of Aldermen and the size of the aldermen, and we should move ahead with thinking more seriously about this and the charter reform movement, which the League of Women Voters, as well as Tom Sheff, are spearheading.
Pandering, all you guys are great panderers so far. Jeff?
Well, I would respectfully disagree with my opponents here when it comes to the question of whether it is a co-equal branch of government. I certainly agree with you that it hasn't been, but it hasn't been because of the unwillingness of the board members to stand up to the mayor. The board has been weak and ineffective. It has the potential to insist that there's a negotiation with the mayor because they have the final say on whether or not to approve his budget. The way it has been is they've been, in most financial matters, more or less rubber stamps. That's not the way to do it. These are and should be co-equal branches of government. The fact that there's a term for the type of government that we have and that it's called strong mayor doesn't mean the mayor is supposed to be strong and the board is supposed to be weak. That's just an expression, and it has to do with the fact that he's the one that files bills and requests for financing. But the board has the opportunity, which it hasn't exercised, and if I'm on the board, I will certainly make every effort to bring it back into a position of co-equal leadership with the city. The different committees on the board have the opportunity and ought to be expected to have some sort of an oversight of the areas that they represent. Sydra is chair of the Public Facilities Committee. She ought to be taking a much more active role than she has been in the oversight of the public facilities that the city has. I mean, the schools are in deplorable condition. There hasn't been the appropriate amount of maintenance money that's been spent on schools in most of the city forever. I mean, I don't believe that you've ever voted to fully fund maintenance in all the years that you've been in office. I commend you for the amount of time that you've spent in office. You know, that's a tremendous amount of time and effort you've put in. But you and frankly the entire board has not fully funded maintenance, and the result is, as during Mayor Concannon's term, when we knew that long delayed maintenance would lead to repairs or renovations which are as much as 6 times, or even some people say 20 times, the money that one would have diverted from maintenance to some other program. So it's essential that maintenance be properly paid for. Otherwise, you pay for it, you know, 6-tuplet down the road. And all of these things fall under the legitimate jurisdiction of the different members and certainly the different committee chairs.
Well, Jeff, by state statute, the board has no authority over single line items in the school budget. The only authority we have is for the bottom line, and the only thing we can do is to cut it. We certainly do, many of us, work with the schools to try and encourage them to fully fund, to advocate for what they need, both in terms of capital as well as trying to move the mayor to fund other physical plant needs. The board played a key role in convincing him that in addition to the capital budget that he should find the money for the modulars, which are desperately needed at Oak Hill. Just because they don't throw bombs in front of television doesn't mean that they're not actively lobbying. But the important issue is the state statute. We do not have the authority to add money to the charter maintenance.
I would also add that we certainly have been woefully underfunding repair, renewal, and maintenance of our capital assets. School buildings, municipal buildings, roads, sidewalks, fire engines, fire trucks. We've been spending $30 million a year. It should be double at about $60 million a year, and that's on a $300 million budget. But we have to remember that we're going to have to quietly work behind the scenes with the mayor to make sure whoever the new mayor is proposes those additional funding, so that if any of us can serve on the board, we have the opportunity to vote yes for it. Because if it doesn't come to the board the way the charter currently works, we can't vote for it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree with you, and that's what I'm saying, that there's got to be a negotiation. But the way that you have a negotiation is you don't start off by saying we are going to be weak and subservient. You've got to be able to show some teeth. 2 years ago, I ran against Sydra and Vern Vance, and at the end of the interview at the tab, I said you've got to be able to demonstrate to the mayor that you're going to be able to say no to him sometime. And both of you said, oh, we would never do that.
I think you're misquoting, Jeff.
I remember precisely that happened that way. And the point is, this mayor, as you know, whenever there's been something controversial, you know, you get some sort of a resolution going. But the fact is, before you get to the point of having his request hit the floor of the board, you have to be in his office and you have to be negotiating, and he has to know that you mean business in a polite way, in a respectful way, but in a way that says to him, we are your equal and we have the ability to say no to you. And so far, he hasn't gotten that message.
You're simply wrong.